Welcome to the Joy of Coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 217 of The Joy of Coding. My name's Mike Conley. It's so good to have you here. It's so good to see you. I hope you're well. I hope you're safe. We're going to be hacking on some Firefox stuff today. Let's jump right in. Let's do this. So let me just quickly share my screen. One sec. Whoop. Here's my screen. Here's today's agenda. I actually haven't I haven't done much to flesh it out yet. It's been a while since I've really put together much of a plan, but we'll make it work. So today is June 3rd, 2020. A reminder, no plan survives breakfast. This might be your first time seeing this stream, or maybe it's not. But what you should know is that no plan survives breakfast. I kind of have a sense of what I want to do today. I have a general vague sense of the things I want to work on, but I don't have any pre-written solutions. I'm going to be doing software development in the raw, and so things might go wrong. I might get stuck. I might get sidetracked. Who knows? But what you're seeing isn't like pre-written stuff that I've sort of figured out in advance, for the most part anyways. Like sometimes I've thought about stuff, but I haven't actually written anything. Let's just say I don't have like a pad of paper next to me with all the stuff I'm going to type out. That's not what's happening. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is that the agenda that we're looking at, this handy dandy agenda with all these links, is something that you have access to. If you're watching this on YouTube, check out the video description. If you're on Air Mozilla, check out the handouts. And if you're on Twitch, then I'm about to drop the link into the Twitch chat right now. Here's the agenda. Okay, there's also an episode guide which you should check out, but I want to actually dive right into working today. So I'm not going to talk about the episode guide just for now. Maybe we'll talk about it later, but for now, let's get to work. Also a reminder, I'm working from home in my basement. I'm using Wi-Fi because I don't have Ethernet down here, which means that it's possible that the video stream quality might suffer periodically. There might be frame drops. I'm going to do my best to avoid those by just hoping, but there's not much I can do beyond that. So if the frames drop, I apologize. Oh, and I had one more thing to shout out before we get started, and that is if you're a fan of, these live coding streams and you want to watch one of our Mozilla engineers hack on the SpiderMonkey engine, there is a new show called Compiler that aired on Twitch last week, and I wanted to give a shout out to Yulia Codehag, who did this excellent stream last week on the JavaScript engine. It was about an hour's length. She went into great detail on like JavaScript specifications and like basically she showed a bunch of interesting stuff about the JavaScript engine. You should check it out. So I'm going to shout out to Compiler. Go watch Yulia's show. It's a good thing. So that's that. What I want to work on today, there are two things I want to work on. The first is actually something brand new. There's a whole slew of bugs that have been filed recently and that I've started working on for a replacement for the Webrtc indicator, that if you're on Windows or Linux and you've ever shared your camera or your window or your microphone or something like that, you've probably seen this little notch, this little orange notch appear at the top of the screen. Let me see if I can show you what I mean. I've got a Windows machine here, and I think what's the best way to demonstrate this? So let's run my build on my Windows machine, and I'll show you what I mean. Hold on. It's a little confusing. Okay, so first of all, I actually have to turn off the new feature. Oh, it's already off. That's good. Okay, and we're going to go to Webrtc experiment, get display media. So this is what I've been using as kind of my test bed, this page. And what I'm able to do is I can like share the screen. And what has typically been shown when you do this is this little notch at the top. And, if you're sharing your camera or your microphone, this little notch will appear at the top. And you can kind of move it around if you click on the little button, the little icon, but it's really kind of unclear. It's not the best, and you can't get rid of it, or it's very difficult to get rid of. You can with like user Chrome hacks, or I think if you find it, you might be able to find it in the no, there's no way of getting rid of it. Like, you can't even right click and hide it, nothing like that. You have no choice. So that's what we currently have, and what I want to show you is something new that we've been working on, where if you turn off the legacy global indicator, that's the first thing. The other one was notification silencing, or was it silencing? No, allow silencing notifications. We turn both of these on, and we go back here, we reload the page, and I say, hey, I want to share the screen. First of all, I can now disable any like DOM notifications from being sort of alerting while I'm sharing my screen, which might be handy if like I don't want other people to see the DOM notifications while I'm sharing my screen, because like a background tab might decide to notify about something kind of embarrassing. So that's something we've been working on. And the other thing is the new indicator, which I'll show you in a sec. Here it is. It's down at the bottom now. And there's still quite a bit of work and polish to do. But one of the things you'll note right away is that it's easier to drag. It's larger, first of all. It's clearer what this thing is talking about. You're sharing nightly. There's a big button that allows you to stop sharing. And there's a little minimize button here if you want to like minimize the window. It's just a normal window now. And you can move it around. And I can stop sharing like that. So that's what I'm currently working on, and there's like a bunch of follow-up bugs to improve this thing. So that's what I'm hoping to work on today. So let's pick one. Actually, I know exactly which one I want to work on, because I've started writing a test for it, and I want to get this test landed along with the fix. So I kind of did it like test first, and now I'm writing the fix. So let me explain what the problem is. So if you are in a normal window, you get the option of hiding notifications. But if I were to open this window, sorry, not now. If I were to open this window as a private browsing window, you'll note that there is no option for silencing the notifications, which is very strange. Why is that? And I know why that is, and that's what I'm hoping to fix. That's what I'm hoping to test today. Test and fix. So I've got a test, and let's just associate this with the right bug. I got to find the right bug. I think it's, where is it? Private browsing. It's one of these. Yeah. Notification doesn't appear for private browsing windows. So let's copy this. I'm going to create a note, make sure that we've got a note to track it. And I've got a test written. So let's take a look at the test. It's right here. First thing I'm actually going to do, though, is put the bug number into the commit. Add test for notification silencing when sharing a display over Webrtc. All right. Oh, hold on. There's a bunch of like Twitch traffic. Hold on. Let's see here. Akra says, is there a reason why dark theme doesn't work in about pages? Are you fixing video auto playing too? So I'm pretty sure that dark theme does work in some about pages. So for example, if I were to turn on my dark theme and go to new tab page, here's an about page and it works. There are some that it doesn't. Like if I go to about preferences, I don't think the dark theme doesn't work here. And that's because the dark theme, like there's been effort to make it work across some about pages. And we've got, I think the main one, which is about home and about new tab, but I don't think a lot of effort's been put into actually fixing it for the other about pages. It's not very high priority. There are higher priority things right now. that was the first question. Are you fixing video auto playing too? No, that's not what I'm doing. That's the other answers. And then Den Shub said, oh, hey, Dennis. So you say, so you're still doing that after all this time? You're a Twitch affiliate now? If I see it correctly, Twitch complains that you haven't had your first subscriber yet, so let me quickly fix that. Hey, awesome. I have a subscriber. Thank you, Dennis. And then Akris goes, about blank, about certificates? Yeah, those don't, I'm pretty sure they haven't been set up to work with dark themes yet. Okay, so let us continue. So here's what I've got. I've got a dump statement in there I should probably get rid of, but I've written a test. And this test, yeah, it's a work in progress patch. Maybe I'll start by like walking through it. I have to kind of refamiliarize myself with it because it's been a while since I've written it. So this is the new test, browser notification silencing. In fact, maybe it'd be easier if I just opened up the test in my editor. Let me just do that real quick. Hold on. I've got a bunch of open files here that I need to get rid of. Just cleaning up. Okay, here we go. So it's browser notification silencing. Nope, that's the wrong one. Why did you do that, Sublime? Browser notification silencing. This one. And what do we have here? We've got like a test page that has like a script on it that will use get user media to get the display. And then I've got this like helper function that takes in a window, and like I'm doing like a bunch of dumping in here because I guess I was trying to debug a hang or something. And I test a normal window, and then I test a private browsing window. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, that the normal window works properly. So let's run the normal window and make sure that it runs properly. So let me quickly build faster. Akra says, it would be great if Firefox always ignored autoplay attribute and asked for each video whether to play it or not. Pretty sure that there has been a lot of effort to try and improve autoplay. So for example, the autoplay attribute, yeah, autoplay blocking is strict by default now, I believe. While we wait for that to autoplay, Firefox. Find autoplay. Block audio and video, site settings. So autoplay, that was one thing. Was it this one? Yeah, it was like last year. Block autoplaying content automatically. So I'm reasonably certain that that's a thing that we do. Okay, so let's run this test and see what happens. Test browser notifications silencing JS. And this should pass. So what it's going to do is just make sure that, I guess while we're waiting for that to spin up, what it does is it makes sure that auto notification silencing by default is not enabled. And then it causes the Webrtc stuff to, yeah, here we go. Causes the Webrtc notification dialog to open up, permission dialog. Then it checks the box and says like allow, and then makes sure that notification silencing is enabled. And then it unloads the tab or stops sharing, and then checks to make sure that silencing notifications is no longer true right down here. And then we're done. That's the test. Let's see. Let us now run it with the private browsing window. And it sits here and does nothing. And I think this is where like we got stuck, and I wasn't sure why. So that's where I got stuck, and that's what I'm hoping to figure out today. And I think a lot of the problem actually has to do with the fact that I'm pretty sure most of the problem has to do with the fact that a lot of the helper functions that are being used, used by this test, presume that the window that we care about is the current window as opposed to a newly opened window. And this subtest actually opens a private window and like runs a bunch of tests on it. And so I have a feeling, I don't actually know this to be 100% the case, but I've already found sufficient evidence to suggest that part of the problem is that the test helpers they're just kind of like assuming that the original window is the one that we care about, which is not the case. So I wanted to figure out where we're getting stuck, and I think that's why I started adding dump statements. So where were we here? Observer saw done requesting. So what was happening? We were like doing this stuff. Allow button is not disabled. We failed this test, and then we set up this observer. Yeah, this is expected to fail because like there's actually like a broken feature here. What I'm trying to do, to be clear, I want this test to run all the way through and fail because we actually haven't fixed the problem yet. But it shouldn't hang. It shouldn't just sit here. So that's what I'm trying to figure out first, is like, why is this test just sitting here? And it sets up these observers, and then it's a JavaScript error in on command. Can't access property checked state because the checkbox is undefined. Right. So that's because the bug actually needs to be fixed. But that's okay. Resolve this promise. Calling callback resolver. Content start recording device events. Should now be silencing notifications. So, should now be silencing notifications. Suppress for screen sharing should be true. And then we just, is it the stop sharing bit? Part of me thinks like, did we ever see this? Done waiting on observer? Did we see that? Done waiting on observer. Yeah, done waiting on observer. It's the stop sharing thing that I think we're waiting on. Let's just double check. Waiting for stop sharing. Done waiting for stop sharing. So if that's actually where the problem is, then we will see it. We'll see those messages. Aaron in Matrix says, the YouTube stream doesn't seem to be working. It just says waiting for Mike Conley Toronto. Why? I'm sorry. Our restream might be broken. It's working on Twitch. Let me just double check. Yeah, our restreaming partner and like the restreaming system is kind of unreliable. It's really unfortunate. But it works most of the time, but sometimes it just doesn't. And that's really strange. Let me just alert Andy. YouTube. Mike Conley, Toronto. Where are the videos? So I'll let him know that. I'm not sure if there's anything I can do. In the meantime, the Twitch stream is working. So that's unfortunate, but not much I can do about it right now. Okay, let us keep going. So unfortunately, I think the test failed because the window never got focused because I was busy dealing with this other stuff. So let's run the test again. Waiting for stop sharing. Yeah, that's the problem. So we wait for stop sharing and the stop sharing part never happens. Or at least it looks like it actually does look like we've stopped sharing. This tab is no longer sharing. So the stop sharing part has worked, but I suspect the parent doesn't actually know, or this helper doesn't know that the stop sharing is done. So let's try and figure out why that is. So here is the method, the stop sharing method. Oh, and I had already started doing some logging here. And where did we get to? Waiting for stop sharing. And then it's this recording device events bit. This observer is never firing in the content process. Recording device events. Setting up observer, observing topic. And then it saw the topic. And then sets up a revoke. Also observing the topic, and then it sees the topic. Setting up an observer, and it uses content topic observed in browser test utils. Content topic observed. Uses browser test utils child. All right, let's see here. So let's actually also log content process is observing topic. And then the other thing I want to do remove observer true. If the topic is in the list array, assume that it came from start observing topics call. If it is in the list array, assume that it isn't within starts afterwards. And then calling callback resolver is the thing that we really want to see, but we're not seeing, because this is the thing that tells the parent, hey, I saw the observer notification you care about. So let's say like iterating observer items, and then I'll give it a length, this dot observer items dot length. And then if the topic is the topic, item topic. So this is setting up the observer. And now the promise resolver is actually called down here when the observer saw the topic. So iterating observer items, item topic, item count is greater than 0. So it does like some subtractions on how many times we expect to observe the notification. Else item count is now item.count. I guess it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. starting at, but I'll do it this way. And now let's run this. This will hopefully give us some information. Okay. Content process is observing recording device events. That's what we want. And then saw topic. Iterating observer items. Item topic. So it sees get user media revoked. It doesn't see recording device events. It does seem to see saw topic. This is a little hard to parse. Some of my logging, I think, is a little unclear because it's like there's the setting up of the observation. So setting up to observe topic. And now I'm going to like do this. That'll make it easier. And then observer saw topic. Whoops. This will just make it easier to read, I think. So it sets up the recording, setting up observer for recording events, observing topic, recording device events, setting up to observe topic, recording device events, content processes observing recording device events. Yes. And it never actually sees them. So that's the problem. This one sees it for like a previous part of the test. So that works. But when we stop, we don't actually see, we don't seem to see the observer notification events again. So maybe they're just not firing. That's the first hypothesis. Are they not firing? So when does this observer notification normally fire? Looks like it normally fires here in Media Manager. Notify recording status change. So let us modify this file. And I'll say like, hey, printf Media Manager, notify recording status change. And then we're also going to say dispatching recording device events. So that's good. Some chatter in the Twitch chat. I'll just read it real quick. It would be great. Yeah, it always works on Twitch though. By the way, mock package was really useful for me. Oh, Okris, you're saying that autoplay works on Twitch. I think the reason that autoplay works on Twitch probably is because the videos don't have audio to begin with. If the videos are have no audio, if they're silent to begin with, then we allow playing them. And I think that's the way Twitch gets around it. And that's part of like the general policy. The sort of the main problem with auto playing videos is the audio, at least from our research. And so if the video is silent, then I believe we allow auto playing to occur. Let's see. And by the way, mock package is really useful to me. Oh, that's good. That's good. All right, so here we go. Let's run this test. Okay. So we actually do dispatch it here. Content saw. Oh, yeah, of course. The content sees it. We dispatch it twice, but the observer is not actually seeing it. That's very interesting. Let us think about this for a second. Huh. Setting up to observe topic in process with ID. Services, app info, process ID. Maybe we're setting it up in the wrong process. Is that possible? Okra said, you know Code Hag, right? She was streaming last week and was really stressed. Unnecessarily, she was prepared very well. I thought so too. I think she did a really, really great job. Yuli did a fantastic job. Code Hag was great. It was a great stream. And during the stream, she said she likes your streams. Yeah, I was like, I think her production values are much higher. Like, I think she was way more prepared than me. I'm like constantly flying off the cuff and I'm making stuff up as I go. She was extremely prepared. And I found that very impressive. I mean, she put a lot of work into it. I sort of wallow in the what I call my cable access production values of just making stuff up. But I think she did a really, really great job. So we're setting up to observe these inside that process 90207 is the name of the that's the problem. Okay, I don't know if you saw that. I'm going to run that again, but the test ended before Dead Shub says you have to step up your prop game. Your stream needs more toilet paper. Prop game. Here's a mug and a spray can of machine oil, and here's a puzzle, mechanical puzzle. Okay, so here the problem is we set up the observer in 90359, but the tab process is 90361. So we set up the observer notification in the wrong process. That's the problem. We're setting up the observer notification in the wrong process. So why is that? So the good news is that we figured out what the problem is. Now we need to figure out why. So in stop sharing, if we look at stop sharing, how does it know which process to communicate with? Well, it's using expect observer called, and it's passing in the frame BC to observe. That's the browsing context. And the browsing context, I'm passing in a browser, but one of the things I noticed is that a frame BC can be a browser or a browsing context, and it's fine with either. If gbrowser context to observe.length is greater than 1, then frame BC to observe. If the observers are listening to other frames, listens for a notification on the right subframe. Gbrowser, what is this? Gbrowser context to observe. Enable observer verification. Adds listeners for all of the Webrtc observer topics. If any notifications occur for those topics that were not explicitly requested, a failure will occur. Okay. Is it? I wonder if this is it. If it's we're just using the wrong browsing context. Frame BC to observe. I don't have props, but I do have sound effects.
How long have we been on this rock? 5 weeks? 2 days? Help me to recollect.
I finally saw the lighthouse. It was pretty good. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again. It was very stressful, but it was very good. I enjoyed it. Yeah, it's undefined. That's the problem. So even though we're passing in the frame BC, the frame that we're observing, it's like it's defaulting to the, what's it defaulting to? To G browser selected browser. That's what the problem is. And why? If the observers are listening to other frames, listen for a notification on the right subframe. Let's see what happens if we just ignore that for now, just for a second. Let's just see what happens. I'm just going to comment that out. And then we're going to start thinking about what it is that that condition actually does. Okay, so this is good. Our test is failing, but we expected it to fail because the checkbox isn't being displayed. Like that part's broken, but our test ran all the way through. That's what we wanted to do. So that's success. Hey, let's hear a celebration sound. This is gonna be a little loud. All right, we figured out what was going wrong, but now we have to figure out, what is this condition doing? Why is this here? What is it for? Let's find out. Let's see if we can understand why it does this. This was added in January by my colleague Neil. Let's take a look. Adapt Webrtc UI for Fission. So this is part of the Fission work. Modify browser devices, get user media and frame to iterate twice. Once performing the operation on two same process frames, the second one with frames that are in Fission mode will be treated different processes. And that's when he adds this stuff in. And the idea is we have a collection of subframe IDs and browsing contexts that we're observing. We check to see if what we're passed is a browsing context. If it's just a browser, then we say, okay, well, fall back to your browsing context. There are a couple places that I think it's for backwards compatibility with other tests or something. Okay. But it's this condition. It's this condition. So originally we were just straight up listening for this observer notification, recording device events. However, now we're saying, hey, if the observers are listening to other frames, we want to listen for a notification on the right subframe. I don't know if that's entirely necessary, this check. What happens if I just run this? Here, I'm going to disable this test so that I'm just going to disable it for now. I'll skip that part. I'll run this part, so the whole thing should pass and that should work. And then I'm going to run the whole suite and see what happens if we just have that condition commented out. You know, I was thinking about something the other day. So part of the reason, or one of the inspirations for this stream, I don't know if it was the initial, it wasn't the initial inspiration, but it's something that someone brought to my attention a couple of years ago. Is there's this game developer named Casey, I don't remember his last name, but he's working on a game. He's writing it from scratch, and it's the stream is called Handmade Hero. And it's a really decent stream. He does a really great job explaining stuff, and he's walking through the process of creating a game engine from scratch. And and developing it, and step by step by step, hour by hour. It's fascinating. This is a professional game developer. I don't know if any indie game developers out there would have the money and time to start writing their own engine from scratch. For like, I would imagine a lot of them would just pick up an off-the-shelf game engine, but this guy is writing one from scratch, and it's very, very interesting. But I'm pretty sure he's writing it alone, and it just sort of struck me yesterday is that one of the interesting things maybe about this stream, I don't know if like there's other really impressive streams out there, like the Serenity OS stream that I've talked about before. This is a really, really interesting stream. And at least with Serenity OS, that fella is like, I think he's merging in pull requests. So he's got other people's code merging in and stuff. But I'm pretty sure Handmade Hero is just that one guy. Whereas for this stream, I'm usually dealing with code I've never seen before, or like I haven't written, or it's other people's stuff that I don't understand. And so I don't know why I brought that up. It's just an observation that this is a stream where you get to watch me struggle through understanding a large code base, the vast majority of which I did not write. Not that it's a problem for... like, I'm glad I'm not writing this alone. That would be madness to try and write an entire web browser the size of Firefox alone. But anyways, each stream has their strengths. Like, for example... Yulia's stream was like, she went in really, really deep, and she did a really great job explaining. I think that was like a drawing pad she had on the bottom right. Like, it was really, really well prepared. The Serenity OS fellow is just laser focused, and he's able to push through what sound like on the face of it, like they're very, very impressive challenges. He's able to really just push through. And then Casey and the Handmade Hero is going super deep and showing you like all the sorts of minute details one has to go into when developing a game engine and debugging a game engine, a cross-platform game engine from scratch. I worry a little bit though, and like it's a fascinating stream. I worry that he's getting a bit bogged down in the development of the engine. I worry that we'll never get to the point where a game has been made, but who knows? I mean that's always the trap, is that whenever you're developing a game, you might accidentally get stuck building the engine for the rest of your life. Anyways. John Hamlet goes, Andreas is working on a web browser, by the way. Yes, I knew that. The Serenity OS browser. It's very interesting. I wish him all the best. You know, it's a brave thing to start writing a browser from scratch, a browser engine, not just a browser. Anyone can take like it's relatively straightforward to take a pre-existing browser engine. Like I'll take Blink for example, because using Electron is really straightforward. And embedding something like Gecko or WebKit is a bit harder. But you know, he's done he's doing something really, really interesting, starting from scratch, building a web engine from scratch. That's really brave. That's really courageous, and I applaud him for it. Akra says, maybe I should start writing my own browser from scratch. Where would I find the time? What's interesting, I think, is Andreas. I don't know him. I've never spoken with him. Like I've watched some of his streams, so I don't know him personally, but I think he used to work for a browser vendor. I think he used to work for Opera. I could be wrong about that, but like we're talking about a fellow who really knows the web engine, like really knows web engines. So you know, that's good. You know, that's who you want to be if you're writing a web browser engine from scratch. Not just like the UI for a web browser, the actual engine and the stuff that's doing the layout and style calculations and whatnot. Okay, so guess what, everyone? The tests passed. I am highly confident that this is not necessary. This condition is not necessary. And that it's simply, it is sufficient to just take the frame browsing context that's been passed in. So what are the other references to frame BC to observe? We're just going to do this, I should probably rerun this again now that I've replaced some of these. Let's rerun those tests again. Oh, he used to work for Apple. That's right. It wasn't Opera. It was Apple. He worked on the WebKit engine. Yeah, there we go. Thank you for the correction, John Hamelink. Yeah, he worked on WebKit. Yeah, what's really interesting about Serenity OS is that he's writing a web browser, but he's also writing an operating system from scratch. And that's like, holy smokes, like, talk about dedication, talk about resolve and pushing through interesting challenges. It's like, what an amazing amount of energy and concentration and focus for you to have to push through developing an operating system, like a web engine, let alone the operating system that it's running on. You know, like that's really neat. I never took operating systems in school, and I wish I did. Hamelink. It's Dutch. Hamelink. Sorry for mispronouncing it. Hello, John Hamelink. So, I got a pretty decent feeling that we can just get rid of that condition and then we're good to go. And then once we've got rid of that condition and our tests pass, then we should feel pretty confident about fixing the actual problem with the test, which is the actual bug. And then we can put the stuff up for review. And that, I think, will make a pretty decent stream. Just got to wait for these tests to finish passing. John Hamelink says, it's okay, everyone does. I'm fortunate in that my name is very rarely mispronounced. Most people are able to pronounce Mike Conley wherever you're from. Like, I've never heard anyone mispronouncing it. Sometimes it's pronounced Connolly. Like, I've heard people do that, especially if you're Irish, Connolly. But it's Conley, Conley. But the interesting thing about my name is that it's also shared with a professional like NBA player. I believe he plays on the Utah Jazz. He used to play on the Grizzlies. I think he's on the Jazz now. And so he dominates search results. Like, if I'm ever vanity Googling and I put in Mike Conley, I'm on like page 3 or up. Like, I'm way beyond. Like, you can't find me on the first couple of pages because Mike Conley from the Grizzlies, aka or the Utah Jazz, dominates. And his father is also named Mike Conley. So his father was Mike Conley Sr. The NBA player is Mike Conley Jr. Mike Conley Sr. was like a triple jump Olympian. So I've got two people who are super famous athletes, really skilled athletes who dominate the search results. And I guess that gives me a little bit of camouflage, search engine camouflage. Anyways, these tests pass. I'm feeling pretty good about that. I'm going to start getting rid of some of this stuff that I added in here for debugging because I don't need it anymore. And then we can start working on fixing up our test. So get rid of that, get rid of this, all this scaffolding just to figure out what was going wrong. And it turns out we were talking to the wrong content process the whole time. And then was there one in here? Yeah. Oh, no, that was always there. This is new. I think. Did I add that? Browser loaded. Has this always been here? Yeah, I added that. Okay, so I can get rid of that. Curious if Waiting for browser. Yeah, that one's there. That one's supposed to be there. These are all supposed to be there. Waiting for removal. Yeah, okay. There's some dumps in here that I think have just kind of like snuck in and exist. So we'll just leave them be. Not my problem right now anyways. It's too tempting to try and fix the world. But those are for tests only, so it's okay. So if I do this test file now, it should run all the way through, but it should fail. So I can also get rid of this printf. Okris asks, how often does Facebook... Oh, wait, there's a bunch of traffic in here. Ha! I share my name with a surgeon and a rowing boat craftsman. That's neat. Well, that's very, like, that's a neat little overlap there. Okris says, how often does Facebook or Twitter ask you about ID? Not often, but periodically, whenever, it hasn't happened too often, but it's happened more than once, where the Grizzlies are... It hasn't happened for the Utah Jazz, but whenever the Grizzlies lost a game, I think Mike Conley Jr. did something on the court or something. I got a DM from someone on Twitter saying, like, you're a bad player, or like, I don't remember what they said, but they thought I was the basketball player. And I'm like, I am definitely not a basketball player. I am a 5'7" computer programmer. I don't think I could get a ball in a basket if you gave me a ladder. So there you go. So this is correct. We are failing this test. So now let's fix the test. And the way we fix the test is by actually making sure that the notification, the permission pop-up has the checkbox displayed for users whenever it's, whenever notification silencing is enabled. And the reason that this isn't working is because there's like a special condition here. Should always remember is returning false because we're in a private browser. And because should always remember is false, we skip this block. And this is the block that added the checkbox. Part of the challenge here is because I'm trying to maintain the old behavior while we develop the new behavior. And the old behavior had that checkbox actually do something different. And that checkbox only displays in the old behavior whenever this evaluates to true, which is not the case if it's a private browsing window. So I need to have like a special case. It's going to make the code a little bit sloppy, but that's sometimes what needs to happen if you've got two modes you need to support for a little while. So let's see here. What do I want to do about this? I'm saying if notification silencing is enabled and we're sharing the screen, then we do this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this out of the condition. I'm going to put this in here. So it happens right after. I'm going to do this for now. And, we might correct this. Hopefully we'll be able to clean this up once we ship the feature. We don't have to support both modes anymore. But what this will do effectively is if we decide, hey, we should always remember. So let's show the checkbox with the old behavior. Then the next block will say, hey, if notification silencing is enabled, which is like the new mode, and we're sharing the screen, then let's overwrite that value that was originally written over here. So before we were doing like a switch where we were saying, hey, which mode are we in? And that switch only occurred within the condition that checked to make sure that we were not in a private browsing window. And now what I'm doing is instead of doing a switch, we we will always do this check of seeing whether or not the notification silencing feature is enabled and we're sharing the screen. And if so, then we make sure that the checkbox does the actual notification silencing feature, regardless of whether or not we ever entered this branch. So that's what I'm thinking of doing here. Let's see if that makes the test pass. It should. So let's quickly build. Danny Colin in Matrix brings up Duke Nukem Forever. Presumably that's because I was talking about game engines and how they took forever, how they can take forever. And yeah, exactly. Like you could just sink so much time into a game engine that you never actually write the game that you started writing the engine for. I've actually, I've never really written. It's been a long time since I've tried to write a computer game. That's how I got actually started with computer programming. Like many computer programmers that I've spoken to. Oftentimes, they liked computer games. They wanted to make computer games, and that was like a way they got interested. Like as a younger person, you're like, oh, I want to make a computer game, and I'm gonna fiddle with a computer and try and make a game. Or at least that's how some people get interested. That's how they get started. Not all people, but some people get interested with like, I want to make a game, and it's been a long time since I've actually made a game from scratch. But if I were, I don't know if I'd start making an engine. Maybe I would. And if I did, it'd probably be like a point-and-click adventure game engine. But you know what I might actually do is I would take a pre-existing proven engine like Godot. Godot, if you're not familiar with it, is a free open-source game engine. A free open-source game engine cross-platform that exports to HTML as well as like straight to desktop, and it does 3D, it does 2D. It's very powerful, and I would build like a framework, or I'd contribute to a pre-existing framework rather, for a point-and-click adventure game engine on top of Godot. That's what I would do. And this sort of thing already exists. I think it was called Escoria. I was looking at this because I love point-and-click adventure game engines. Escoria is like the semi-official point-and-click adventure game framework for Godot, and there's like, it's got its own like little scripting language, which I thought was neat, because that's kind of like what you need whenever you're writing one of those games. Is you need like a way of scripting cutscenes and events, and there's like a way that you can, like, there's a manual. This is great. You can see like the scripting language is like a very, very, very simple language that's like not GD script, which is what Godot normally reads, but it's like this is neat because it shows you how you can build a language into Godot, which I thought was kind of cool. And yeah, Mozilla, Danny Colin brings up, Mozilla gave a $50,000 grant to port the client to the web, or the editor to the web, and that's absolutely right. Okay, so let us now run the test. And hopefully this test will pass. And then once we've got the test passing, let's also just like test it manually, just to make sure that we didn't actually screw up writing our test. Good, the test passes. So now let's actually, let's run the program, and let's see if we can reproduce the issue. Webrtc experiment get display media. So this is my testing page. Now I'm going to open up a browser, private browsing window. So this is a normal browsing window, and we'll say, yep. Oh, hold on. I think I have to turn on the feature. Notification silencing. Yeah, sorry, I had to turn on the feature. So let's reload. Yeah. Disable notifications. That's good. And now let's do it in the private browsing window. Yeah. We've got our checkbox. All right. Now if we try and get like, let's go to a site that will like try and send a notification. I like to use David Walsh's page. David Walsh is a Mozillian who's got a really great blog about web development. I'm going to try and show a notification. I'm going to allow them. I say show a notification. And it's not showing, and that's good. That's what we want. We don't want those to show. But if I were like to stop sharing, if I say stop sharing, notice that the indicator doesn't exist on Mac OS. I haven't turned it on for this platform, but we're going to have that indicator show up on Mac OS as well. So I'm going to reload this page and stop sharing. And now if I go over here and say show notification, then I get my notification. So that's what we wanted. Okay, so this is working. We're going to close down. And let's take a look at our patch and see if there's some cleanup we can do, or any cleanup we want to do. What I'll actually do is I'm going to fold this into the pre-existing commit that I've got. I'm just going to amend my commit, and we're going to take a look at the whole thing. So we've got some logging in here that we should get rid of. Whoops. Didn't mean to put any logging in there, but I did. Kenny Loggins. And what else? That's right. That's what we want. Then this test. And then there are, oh, okay, setting up observer for topic. We don't want this in here. Get rid of that. And then we did want some of these modifications in here. When I put this up for review, I'll kind of explain what's going on. Window, document. Check device selectors. So we're going to get rid of that media manager printf as well that I added. And I accidentally got rid of this. So that looks like it was always part of it, and I was wrong before to get rid of it. Line 550. Under here. It was wrong of me to have gotten rid of that. I want to get rid of this. All right. So where are we at? Where are we at? I think this is almost ready to go up to have a quick look-see to see how it works and see where there are deficiencies. Okay, so let's post this up on Fabricator so we can have like sort of like a zoomed out look of it, but we'll post it as a work in progress patch. That's what this --WIP means, and that means that like it's just a work in progress, but we want to put it up, and that way we can like kind of see it with our reviewing eyes on and sort of do self-review, which is kind of important.
Mamma mia! Doki.
All right, here we go. Let's get our reviewing cap on. Right, so we do this by default now. I think what I want to do actually is put a comment saying if notification silencing is enabled, then the checkbox in the permission dialog, permission pop-up, permission panel controls that. Controls it. And we're sharing, and this is controls it for the screen sharing permission. Wait, if notification silencing enabled and then the checkbox? No, hang on. If the notification silencing feature is enabled and we're sharing a screen, then the checkbox for the permission panel is what controls notification silencing. This intentionally overwrites what might have been set for the checkbox might have been set in the checkbox. That's fine. Okay, that's one thing. Then this test. Let's make sure that our test is properly documented. Test. Okay, so we should document what this function does. This is a helper function that does most exercises a particular window, exercises a specific window to determine whether or not, to test whether or not the user can silence notifications via the display sharing permission panel. Param. What is the format we agreed on? It's something like param. There's a different format. It's like JavaDoc. It's kind of like JavaDoc. Param. It's not exactly it. There was an example that I was working off of where Paul, or my reviewer, was asking for a particular format. I'm trying to remember where I put it. Maybe it was in some of the other tests. Yeah, here. It was in one of the other tests. Okay. So something like this. So but we're the window that the window to run the test on. First, we ensure that notification silencing is disabled by default. Then we request screen sharing for the window, and from a tab in the window, and check the checkbox that silences notifications. Once screen sharing is established, then we ensure that notification silencing is enabled. Then we stop sharing and ensure that notification silencing is disabled again. Okay. And this returns a promise. And it resolves with undefined when the test on the window is complete. And then this tests a normal browser window, tests notification silencing in a normal browser window. And then this one tests notification silencing in a private browser window. Okay. What else did I want to do? So a lot of these were modified to be able to handle other windows as an option. And it has, I'm using like default params to default to the original behavior, which was just to presume that the selected browser is, like the current Windows selected browser is the one we care about. So that's a way of not breaking other tests by maintaining some backwards compatibility. Okay. Pretty happy with this. Some of those test functions probably could use some comments, but they didn't have comments to begin with. And I think I'm just going to leave them. Smurf D is typing in the Matrix channel. How goes it today? Better homebrew today? Oh yeah, that's right. I made like awful homebrew coffee, cold brew coffee last stream. I finished that stuff and it was only okay, but I didn't sleep for like 3 days after I made it. I haven't made more homebrew since. What I have made is ginger beer and it's delicious. I use the Joshua Weissman technique. It's been very good. So now I'm going to post this up for review, submit tip, and I'm also going to push to try. And then I think I'm going to cap the stream off. I think I'm going to call it there once I've pushed it up for to try. But I do want to show you something I think it's kind of neat. Is this new capability with try that we're testing out. So if you're not already familiar, try is how we're able to like run like a suite of tests, like our test frameworks and test suites across a like a patch that we are attempting to land. It's not continuous integration but it's using the same continuous integration infrastructure on top of a speculative patch. It's a patch we want to try out. And the way you normally do it is with mock try, and then you'd like specify what jobs you want to run, etc. What's really great about mock try these days is there's this new feature, mock try auto, which automatically figures out using fancy machine learning based on the files that you changed, what jobs you want to run, what jobs you most likely want to run. So instead of having to like pick and choose, I can just say mock try auto and then do artifact builds. And this is going to try and figure out what kind. It's still experimental. That's why it says results may vary. But I found it's very helpful and pretty comprehensive. Like it finds the right jobs. So mock try auto. Oh, I need to put in. I restarted my computer, so my SSH key is currently password protected. So hold on. I just have to unlock my SSH key. The Smurf D asks, what did you follow for the cold brew? Like, what technique? I used, I think I used You Suck at Cooking. Cold brew. Yeah, I used You Suck at Cooking, which is a great channel. I highly recommend it. Cold brew. I should also put this in here. This is the bug we ended up working on. So I want to say SSH add my Mozilla SSH key. I'm gonna make some noise so that you can't hear what how many characters and whatnot I'm typing in, because who knows what I'm typing in. I don't want you to use like fancy schmancy. Oh god. I don't want you to use fancy schmancy like microphones and stuff to figure out what my keyboard is saying, what passwords I'm using, or what characters I'm typing. There we go. Akris got me all like paranoid about people using like very fancy microphones to like figure out what characters you're typing. Like, this is not that good a microphone. This is an okay microphone. And I don't think there are other people who have microphones in here. But what I don't want is for is for me to be like not speaking, and then I'm typing like very sensitive information, like my SSH key password or something. And then have the input in the microphone be decent enough that someone could like reverse it and figure out what characters they were, which is theoretically possible. I know it's crazy, but this is theoretically possible. There was like someone did like some really impressive statistics and like signal analysis, and they were able to turn the microphone input back into a reasonable transcription of what was actually being typed. I believe they had to calibrate though. I think they had to like do a bunch of like training on the model, which who knows, someone could do that across all of these live streaming videos I've got on YouTube. They could potentially train a model on like what my keyboard sounds like as I press each key. And I don't want to get, since you're typing a lot, it should be possible to calibrate, says Akris. Yeah, that's right. So that's why I make a lot of noise whenever I'm typing a password. All right, so pushing to try worked. I don't know if pushing, did it work whenever I pushed the patch up? I think it did. Yeah, here it is. And the status of it is still draft, but I think I got it where I wanted it to be. So I'm actually going to request review now. And pushing up to try is done. This is the try revision. So I can track that and make sure that all our tests pass. If tests don't pass, then, I'll pull my patch down and whatnot. Akris says, thanks. I've tried a few, but was never a fan of cold brew. Yeah, I like cold brew, especially on hot days. It's like if I want coffee on a hot day, that's why I drink cold brew. Okay, Colin says, if one person can code a game engine, then anything is possible. That's right. Lots to talk about interesting streams today. So if you have other recommendations for streams, let me know, and I can put them in my like shoutouts list. Maybe there's stuff I need to be watching that I'm not familiar with. But I'm just going to repeat my shout out to Compiler. Check out CodeHag's stream. Compiler. I believe CodeHag is streaming again tomorrow. Or no, not tomorrow. Fridays. I think it's Fridays. Every week. I don't know if there's a schedule put up yet. The next stream is Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Check it out. Compiler. CodeHag's going to go deep into the SpiderMonkey engine. You should totally subscribe to her channel and check that out. All right, so I'm going to cap it here. Thank you so much for watching episode 217 of The Joy of Coding. I hope you have yourself a great week. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Let me just transition to camera and say thank you. Bye-bye. See ya.